I'm trying something new today, Nicholas. And I pray to God I don't fuck it up.
You
ready for this?
This is...
You ready?
No, I'm not, but go ahead.
You strapped in? You strapped on?
Nope, none of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the DSG and Geeks Worldwide Radio proudly presents to you the greatest podcast in the world. He's the Fry Guy, Nick Friar. I'm Backcracker Dr. Joe. Together, we are the TLDR Comic Book Club, baby! Nicholas, how you doing?
Holy shit, Joe.
Yeah.
I think the podcast is over. I think we've peaked.
Fucking
Holy
nailed
shit.
it.
You did nail that. I don't know if you set the bar now for yourself. Not to get creating stress for you, but you got to get it right every time now.
Yeah, well.
Holy shit,
that's
dude,
not gonna happen.
That was good. That was How many times you practiced that shit?
A couple times right before you popped on there.
Wow, man. That was good. I love that. That is our new intro. Even though it doesn't mention the Woodward and Bernstein or the DSG.
So I tried working that in, but I didn't want to say DSG twice. I try not to be redundant.
Well,
I'm a wordsmith now, Nicholas.
Yeah. Oh, right. Of course, you do one review for the first time in months.
Right.
Yeah.
The student has surpassed the master, except this student won't give up the high ground. The
master took the high ground. So
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyways,
I'm saying I'm not going to pull a fucking Anakin. I'm going to take the high ground, and I'm going to take your fucking legs off.
Okay. Sure. Awesome. All right. Anyways, for those who are just coming across our show, if Joe didn't hook you in for life with that intro, holy shit, I'm still blown away. Make sure you go check us out on our audio channels if you prefer that instead of watching us on Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube. Of course, you can watch us there. We do post clips of our reviews, whether it's our full graphic novel or series review, or just our one-hit reviews on certain single issues. But you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, Geeks Worldwide, SoundCloud, all those places. We're all on the major platforms. If we're not on one that you listen to, let us know. We'll make sure that we get there. But if you're listening to the major ones, you're all set. Joe, we obviously got a ton of news because San Diego Comic-Con just happened. And one that I had missed in the course of things, I need to lead off with this because I am fucking blown away that we're going to be getting Greg Capullo, Todd McFarlane reuniting for Spawn shit. And it's not just Spawn shit. It is fucking Spawn and Batman. It is a one-off 48 pages coming December 13th. We'll hold our breath on that one, or won't hold our breath on that one.
Right. Supply chain,
But holy shit, dude. Yeah. This is amazing. It's been I think 3 decades since we got these two going up against each other. And obviously it's been less time, but a while since we got Capullo and McFarlane working together. This is nuts, man.
Yeah, I'm stunned you missed this one. I don't know if I retweeted it out. I thought I did, but I mean, you're the Spawn guy, right? We're both big Capullo guys, but this is what I thought you would have been on top of. But I mean, I completely forgot that this was a thing because it's been so fucking long. So what a goddamn time to be alive, Nick.
It is crazy because I mean, and also I was on the Cape all weekend because I knew you had gone there just recently, and now that you were gone, I knew it was safe for me to go there. So that's where I spent my whole weekend.
Did you go during Bear Week?
I did not. Well, Wes asked me the same freaking question. I'd never heard of that. You two, though. Okay. Well, I guess you got. I guess I know what you two do.
I've been there during Bear Week. I was getting stared at like a Christmas ham. It was quite uncomfortable.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, anyways, yeah. So when you look back at the original Spawn stuff, too, one thing Todd did a little bit over the years was you would have there's one image where it's all these characters in hell in a prison cell, and you see all their arms sticking out, and you can tell it's Wonder Woman, Superman. I think it was more DC than Marvel necessarily in that case, but obviously Todd's got a really good relationship with DC now. And this is kind of wild because I know he said I wouldn't draw I won't draw DC and Marvel characters ever again. That's not what I'm going to do. And obviously Capullo is the one that's doing the drawing here. But his way of drawing the characters now is doing toys with them, which has obviously been wildly successful. But yeah, this is nuts. In this era too, for Spawn, you can see Spawn teaming up with anybody. Any Image Comics character can team up with whoever they want to, as long as the other company is okay with it. But in this instance, it's it's DC. You just wouldn't think something like this is going to happen in this era.
Yeah, this is going to be phenomenal. And I want to clarify something real quick about Bear Week. When I said I felt uncomfortable, my wife, or I was dating Megan at the time, wanted to use that to get me free drinks, and I told her I'm not cheap. and I didn't want to
Wow.
feel used. So I want to
Mm,
clarify that. The attention.
mm.
I was peacocking around a little bit. I must admit.
Oh, oh, wow. The truth comes out. This is something. Well, anyways, as we digress into that, obviously we got a ton of news with the MCU stuff, and I talked about it at length on Change My Mind with Wes to kick off that show, so you guys can catch a lot of that over there. Joe, did you have any big takeaways for you? Because I know you, as much as anybody else in the DSG, has been like, this movie has a job to do, and this, and like especially with Thor, and now we have some serious direction. So you've had some strong feelings, especially recently. So I'm curious how you felt about the announcements.
Well, I mean, I mean, I loved what we got from Black Panther, right? That's gonna be an emotional movie, and
Yeah.
for the most part, I'm excited for most of the titles. There's some titles on there that whatever I don't
Hmm.
particularly care for, but my biggest criticism of Phase Four has been like it hasn't done anything really to advance the story. It's really suffering from a pacing problem because of all the properties that we've gotten in Phase Four. There's only three that matter, right? WandaVision, Loki, and then choose either Spider-Man or Doctor Strange, right? Because that kind of gives you the premise of the multiverse. Now everyone likes to come at me and say, well, it's Phase 4 is essentially Phase 1 2.0. Okay, I get that. You're introducing a lot of characters and new elements, but what Phase 1 did that was just, I think, head and shoulders above what Phase 4 has done was they used their mid and their post credit scenes really effectively to tease what was coming next, to plant the seeds what was coming next. And if you're gonna, take the majority of the movie and either introduce new characters or like I'm starting to wonder now, like what was the purpose of Spider-Man really? Because it didn't really do a whole lot except for like, oh, here's a little chunk of symbiote. Okay, so Venom's in the MC. We already that's not new. Like that's not like there wasn't anything big. Like I wanted to see more like hints
Mm.
of what we got in San Diego Comic-Con did more to advance where the MCU is going through what they revealed than anything we got in Phase 4. And I just felt like Phase 4 really like just took for granted the mid and the post credit scenes because I think, as moviegoers, when we're sitting through Phase 1 movies, Phase 2, and Phase 3 leading up to, Infinity War and Endgame, like those brief scenes gave us so much. And
Mm.
I just felt like a lot of that was wasted here. I just felt like Phase 4 just kind of spun its tires in neutral way more than it should have. And I get like, okay, they're trying to reset and but like it's Marvel. They're 30 something properties in now. It's like you gotta move with, a little bit more pace here. That's all. It's not like I hated all the properties. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, Phase 4 was fucking terrible. I enjoyed the movies. I enjoyed them all. They just like from us, like when we read comic book, Nick, right? Comics, right, Nick? We issues 1, 2, 3, 4. We expect there to be, especially like in these shorter arcs, we expect there to be some like that was our biggest beef with Berserker, right? Issue
Mm.
1 came out fucking guns blazing, right? And then issues 2, 3, 4, and then we quit because the story didn't go anywhere.
Right. And I guess that's where I kind of view it a little bit differently than you is that, like, well, we have all these individual titles within the larger MCU. And I understand too that it does tie into this bigger thing. Like this, and that's where I think Marvel, they got too big too fast, and they did a great job with it through these first three phases. And it's just that they didn't know, like they didn't continue forward with that. And that's where they run into issues. They kind of set the stage or the precedent for like, this is what we do. And then you come to Phase 4, it's like we're going to go back and start over again. I liked it, but by and large, I understand the frustration. And when we talk about living up to the hype, I liked these things a lot, and I gave them higher grades than Wes and you and most other people in the DSG throughout Phase 4. However, when you're talking about advancing the larger story, they haven't done that. They haven't done that at least now. I think when we look at Phase 5 and Phase 6, we're going to look back on Phase 4 a lot better than we did while
Yeah,
it
but
was.
I hate the retcon shit, like because it's easy. It right. 1 second, hold on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh boy, leaving the mic on and everything. There we go. But yeah, there's quite a few other things. Oh, here we go. All right, you good?
Yeah. I need to step away for 1 second.
All right.
I will be right back. So you flip through some of this news, and I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Sounds like a plan. So, when it comes to the rest of the stuff that we got at San Diego Comic Con, now there's some big Power Ranger news that we got and all this. Ryan Parrott and Dan Mora are going to be doing some more TMNT, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Of course, this is perfect time for Joe to not be here because as much as he likes Ryan Parrott and Dan Mora and TMNT, not a big Power Rangers guy. I really enjoyed when they did the event. I believe it was 5 issues, if it wasn't 6. They came up with this whole action figure line and everything too. I actually got the Green Ranger Shredder like crossover that they did. So a whole lot of potential there. Very excited to have them be on this again. I mean, Dan Mora, I don't know how this guy does it. He's the busiest man in comics, and it's like, you're an artist. I don't understand how you're able to balance all of that out. We did find out that we're going to get Supermassive 2. I'm going to wait a little bit until Joe gets back before we touch on some of that. But we did find out that Melissa Flores, friend of the show, is going to be taken over for Power Rangers mainline. Now, the one area that I was a little bit confused, it looks like it's going to be Mighty Morphin Power Rangers straight up. Now, we've been getting Power Rangers and Mighty Morphin as 2 separate titles, of course, talked about on the show a little while back. Ryan Parrott was writing both at the time, and it's escaped me who's writing Mighty Morphin now, but he is handling Power Rangers. But either way, really excited to see her take over with issue 1. I think it's the 101st issue of Power Rangers at Boom Studios. And Melissa had given us a little hint, after the show that there was going to be some major announcement for her at San Diego Comic-Con. So that's going to begin in November. So we may have a quick turnaround on when we have her back, because of course she's happy to come back on. And you know what, Joe? We're not just going to be talking to her about Power Rangers. We're going to have to talk to her about this Radiant Pink series that she didn't tell us about when we were talking to her. Yeah.
Really, she really snuck one past us on, past us on that one, because she's definitely being a little coy, because we tried to, we weren't like, usually I'm trying to get stuff out of the writers and the creators we have, because I'm selfish and I want the stuff before everyone else.
Yeah.
But with Melissa, right? The Dead Lucky was her first thing that she's written in comics, and so
Still
we were
not
trying
out as we're recording this.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we were just trying to like get an idea of what other projects she might have. We want to, get this information out, and she was good. She was very tight-lipped.
Yeah.
And so not
she
only
didn't lie,
that,
though. I want to give her that credit. She didn't lie, because she did. Because at first I said to Joe, like, we're gonna have to, before the show, we're gonna have to like call her out. And it's like, what is this? You told us like you didn't have anything. She said, I'm just trying to get the Dead Lucky out. That's all she said. That's not a lie.
And well, I don't know if I can say this next bit, because Radiant Red doesn't come out till tomorrow. But there was something at the end. It wasn't a spoiler. It just said, "Do you think?" Well,
yeah. Just leave it.
Yeah,
we'll get to Radiant Red
we'll
later.
just leave it. But like, keep your peepers popped.
Massive Verse is on fire.
Different. Sorry, I was different book altogether. But like with Radiant Red, we're getting more there too. So like, Radiant Pink, Supermassive 2, Radiant, everything. This is like the biggest thing in comics right now.
So I don't think I did TMNT Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the show, and that's definitely like, hey, this is just a fun comic that really doesn't go into anything.
And
deeper.
I've never read it, so
I was going to ask you, are you going to give it a look? Because that's what I was talking about. What you had stepped aside, because obviously it's Parrott and Dan Mora.
Well, you know how much I love those guys, especially Mora. But you've read the first TMNT Power Rangers, so you've got carte blanche to call dibs.
Well, it's not
if
that
you want to do it on the show, and that's okay.
I'll revisit it, but my thing is, Joe, like it's like a fun thing that like is like go along for the ride. It's not. I don't think that there's something like crazy deep. I'll revisit it.
Then I'll give it a read.
Sure. Okay, I'll revisit it before this new one comes out and see if I can do something on the show. But it's like, it's definitely TLDR worthy. It's just like, can I talk about that for more than 10 minutes necessarily? I don't think I can. It's pretty straightforward, but I'll give it another look. Last thing before we get to catching up, as we get really heavy into the news, just San Diego Comic-Con, it makes sense. And at San Diego Comic-Con, we find out who the Eisner winners were this year, and nobody really of note or anything like that, so we can kind of just move on from this. But in all seriousness, I got the numbers right in front of me, Joe, now. It looks like, so the leader in all this was Fantagraphics, which I think is just a digital-only company. I don't really know much about them. But DC and Image each had 3 apiece, and then they had 2 shared. So technically they had 5. So those were the big winners. Then Fantagraphics had 4 straight up. IDW had 3 as well. Then Iron Circus had 2. Boom had 1 and 1 shared. Marvel only 2 shared in all this. They did not have one winner straight up.
I mean, makes sense. I mean, Marvel is Marvel, right? But like, this is another week, Nicholas, where I'm taking a look at the books that are what's new, and I don't have any underlined that I read that I wanted to talk about. You've got one, right? It was like the same thing last week. So they've got volume, right? But like Wolverine is one that Ghost Rider. So they've got like maybe a handful of titles that we were both like really into, and that's maybe about it, considering like the volume. The percentage of books that we actually love right now is fairly low. But Tynan came out big, right? Tynan came out big. He got Writer of the Year.
Yep.
And then he shared Book of the Year, right, with Something is Killing the Children, and with the book that you're talking about today, which I'm pretty sure you picked just so that you could say that a book you've done on this show has won an Eisner.
Okay. Wow.
Because I mean, all of Doc's books
you want to tread
Eisner
causely
winners,
here. You want to tread cautiously here.
Because The Good Asian is another winner, right? And
Good Asian is a neither of us book. That is bullshit.
No.
It is a neither of us book.
There's a great.
What you're gonna say is a gray area? This is bullshit. I call
no. What I want to say is a quote from Brian Scalabrine talking about his ring with the Celtics, right? And he was a bench guy. He goes, "Yeah, right now I'm a bench guy. 10 years from now, I'll tell people I played significant minutes. 20 years from now, I'm going to tell people that I was starting. And in 40 years from now, I'm going to tell people I was the MVP, right? When people go back and they look through the catalog of TLDR, they're going to see The Good Asian talked about by Duck.
Okay, but when they actually listen to the show, which is what we care about most, because what the show is about, they're gonna find out that it's one of the biggest, not conspiracies, issues that we've had on the show. I can't think of the right
bigger
word.
than the rigged
controversy.
Sure.
Controversy. That's a controversy.
Controversy.
Yes. I've had Bitterroot sitting on the sideline for a long ass time. We'll get to that more later. But I will say, last year you had a ton of books that were Eisner nominees, but not one of them won it. In the end, I was the one that had the Eisner winner. I was the first one.
Stan Sakai twice, I think, is won Eisners back to back.
You're talking about a person, not a title. We're talking like there's a difference. And also, you're going to take credit for Tynan. You've been complaining about him more this year than you have any other year.
Not the book that he won for.
No, but about him as the writer and everything. Now
and Nice House on the Lake one as well, right? So
you've complained about that series too.
Well, I have, right?
Yes,
But still,
you have.
I've still talked about it on the show.
In the end, you can have your awards, because to me, art is not about awards. Art, the idea of us doing that, look, this is not talking about Hollywood. Like, so this is different. These are like normal people. You guys know we've had a bunch of them on the show, and we're going to have more of them too. Never could have Tynan on now, though. I refuse to have him on now because of this. But it's about art. It's all subjective, so it's a bunch of bullshit, anyways. But congrats to everybody who won an award. I hope that they have the trophy and they can hold on to it.
No, it was great. It was really great. Someone had tweeted out, "I wish they would live stream the Eisners," and 100%, like make it a Twitch thing or a YouTube thing or something like that. It would be awesome. I would watch the shit out of that. But
I watch that one too. That's one award show I think I actually would watch, honestly.
Yeah. But let's get to catching up here. We're too busy, being bougie, down in the Cape, to read anything this weekend. But I hope in all seriousness, looks like you guys had a good time. I caught up on a couple of titles. Philadelphia 23. Holy shit, Nick. You weren't kidding, right?
Yeah.
And I've said this every issue for the past 4 issues. Sean Alexander's art just gets better and better.
Yeah,
like holy smokes, was it ferocious this issue, and just the action in general. And you're right, what they're setting up is just going to be fucking crackers.
And honestly, like where I said when Nita Hawes came out, right? I fell in love with Nita Hawes so hard, and I enjoyed that series. We've only gotten one arc. I'm sure we're going to get more from Rodney later on. But honestly, I was saying how it was so much better. Then we get Philadelphia, and it's like this new arc of Philadelphia is like
ramped up.
I retract my statement.
Yeah,
Philadelphia
ramped up.
Kicking ass right now. Holy shit.
Caught up on the Punisher.
Nice.
Again, continues to be great. And then I caught up. So I read Hit Me issue 1 when it first came out and loved it. And then I kind of fell behind, as I have with a couple of other. basically the Joneses. That's another one I have to catch up on.
Mm.
But we started getting review copies again from AWA, which is great. And so seeing that Hit Me issue 5 is dropping this week, and it has been a dog's age since I've written reviews. I said, you know what, let me read issue 5. I'll write the review for it, and then as I'm like, oh man, this might be one of the highest rated things I've put on Geeks Worldwide, and I'll talk about that a little bit
But
more.
why don't we just jump right into what's new? Because
Yeah,
like you said, I don't have anything. So why don't you kick us off with AWA?
yeah. So it's fun having their review copy, getting their review copies. There's just a little bit of a lull, things happen, and so I started. I was like, let me catch up, and so I read issue 2. Oh fuck, right. This is fantastic. Issue 3, and let me tell you something. Issue 4. I don't know if you've read issue 4 yet. If you're caught up, but this was the subject matter in Hit Me, as we've talked about before. It's not for everyone, right?
Mm.
And it can get a little intense,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And be that as it may, issue 4, there was some panels in issue 4 that legit made me queasy, legit made me feel uneasy. Just like I went, whoa, right? That's intense.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't take away from the story. It didn't make me want to put it down. It just made me want to, just like keep going, see where the hell, this story was going. And then I read issue 5, and like we talk about this time and time again, like AWA, and TKO, even though TKO, they just put it all at once, but like these companies that are doing these 4, 5, 6 issue
Mm.
arcs, like AWA more than anyone just knocks it out of the park. Like
Mm-hmm.
they tell really great tight stories, and Krista Faust has done a couple of these, Bad Mother and Redemption,
Yeah.
which I really loved. And so the badass character, Lulu, that she created for Hit Me, was awesome. And this story was awesome because not only was it just like very deviant,
Mm-hmm.
that was secondary to the actual story that was going on, the seedy underbelly of this world, and the way it wrapped up. And this was, I believe I gave this issue a 9.5,
I believe you did.
and I've only given maybe one other title, a 9.5, and in large part it's like this issue is worth 9.5, but the whole series is it's just that freaking good. So I think I wrote in my review, like, if you picked up the first issue, it's like, I don't know if this is for me. Pick it back up again, read it straight through. It deserves it, man. This was a fucking awesome series.
So one thing about your review that I did want to comment on, that I'm really glad you highlighted, Marco Lesko, the colorist for this
Yes.
series. I mean, right from the jump, and I think that was something because I gave Hit Me issue 1 comic of the week for Geeks Worldwide,
Yeah.
and one of the things that really stood out was Lesko's artwork because we see the bruising on Lulu, and it's like, damn, like that is so well done. And as much as we see different things, we've seen that in comic book art plenty different in different ways, but in this instance, it just felt like it felt a little more real in this moment, as much as it's
Oh
like a
yeah.
realistic art style, which I don't want that, but it was that was so impressive.
Well, yeah, because it's one of the things I mentioned was like, even like Krista's, script, like she's writing this all up, but the artists still have to bring it to life,
Of
right?
course.
And so like she's writing the story and she's taking us down a path, but it's not like when you read prose, right? You're reading the words on the page, and in your mind you're creating, the imagery. Well, Priscilla and Marco here, like they're the ones that really, like, they deliver that unease
Mm,
so perfect. And
mhm,
like it's visually, like, it's at times it can be a little, unnerving and
mm.
unsettling, but that's what they're going for here.
Yeah.
And they nailed it. Like, this was the same art team that was on Chariot, which I
Yeah, I
loved.
saw you said that. I still haven't read Cherry, which you did on the show.
Yeah, and in Chariot, it's got this sort of neon 1980s Miami Vice vibe. So you get a
Mm,
lot of these neons, these bright colors, and it works. So it's electric, right? It
mm,
creates this electric feeling throughout the entire story. Whereas in this, you're dealing with darker stuff, darker subject matter, more deviant subject matter. There's like I said, the seedy underbelly to crime and the mob and all that. So the colors reflect that, right? Not to mention just the Lulu gets tuned up quite a
Yeah.
bit,
Yep.
and you see that, but you feel it's very visceral,
Yeah.
right?
Someday we're gonna have to get Krista Faust on the show. I think maybe we'll have to see if we can get her on ahead of the first trade coming out. And honestly, my only regret with Hit Me is not calling dibs on it from the jump. But that's where we're into that problem. It's like I want to share this. I want you to read this book because it's so good. But like
Yeah,
sometimes you just got like I should have done that because this is one that we should be doing on the show. It's not
yeah,
like the people need to hear more about this. But you know what? We
yeah,
do
yeah.
an interview, they still hear about it in the end. So maybe that's just what
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have to do.
Yep.
But awesome stuff from Hit Me and AWA. As for Marvel this week, we got The Amazing Spider-Man issue 4, Venom issue 9, Strange 4, Obi-Wan 3, Ant-Man 1. That's going to be a mini series. We got Star Wars Dr. Aphra issue 22, Captain America Symbol of Truth issue 3, Wolverine Patch issue 4, which I could be less interested in. The Variants issue 2, Iron Cat issue 2, Janice Vale, Captain Marvel, issue 1, Wild Cards, The Drawing of Cards, issue 1, which is a George R. R. Martin thing, I believe. And then we have the long awaited debut of the Claremont series, Gambit, issue 1, which I did read and I did want to talk about, but you told me beforehand, like you had some reasons that you didn't read this.
So two reasons why I didn't read this one. One, um, because I stole Good Asian. I do feel guilty about that,
Mm,
and I know you're a Gambit guy. Claire, we're all Claremont, people here. So it's like, what, this is Nick's binky or one of Nick's binkies.
yep.
So I should let him have this.
Thanks.
But then I'm kind of thumbing through the art and going, you can have it.
Yeah. Yep. 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 I mean, like the art has definitely like a throwback vibe to it, but at the same time, like I don't necessarily, I'm not. I was worried about that when I saw the cover at first. Like when we first
Yeah,
found out about the art, I'm like, okay, it's Claremont though, so it's like it's going to be cool, it's going to be fun, and it's like it's solid. It's nothing crazy. I wouldn't have called dibs on this. I absolutely wouldn't have called dibs on this. I'm not going to now either. Like it's probably like we got Storm, and this is back when they crossed paths, which is when we first met Gambit in X-Men comics. So Storm's like a kid right now because she's put under the spell and everything. So like there's quite a bit of focus on her personally, and I like Storm, but it's like the title is Gambit, like not
yeah,
Gambit and Storm. I want a little more focus on Gambit. So
yeah.
and then it just felt a little older, just in the way it was written and
Well,
everything.
and the
So
art just felt a little too cartoony for me. There was something about it that was just, I don't know. I was What I want from Gambit is I want something gritty. I don't want something so bright. Because I think there's a grittiness to the character that I
you think?
think, right, that it just looking just thumbing through I'm like, it's really bright and it seems just kind of like cartoony, and I want some grit to it. I want some sketchiness to the art. I want maybe some a little bit darker colors. And I haven't read it, but after listening to you, 100%, it should be 100% Gambit. Don't don't
So
don't don't throw in the other X-Men. You don't need the other X-Men. Gambit can sell himself.
I get very annoyed with how Gambit gets handled. Like that's why I've only talked about. I know we don't like overly harp on like multiple arcs of certain characters. I do think we may want to reconsider that at some point, just because like with Batman, there's so many different individual Batman stories that we could talk about over time that maybe Batman we couldn't do that with, but there are other ones that like the other hasn't read that we could absolutely kind of go down that road. But with Gambit, like the Marvel Now run is really the only one that I'm like, I absolutely want to talk about that one. Like Moon
Yeah.
Knight, there's some other Moon Knight stuff I could probably do at some point, and maybe I will. But it's very like I get very frustrated with how Gambit has been handled over the years.
Yeah.
When you talk about the art style, Joe, I agree with you. Like you want to have a grit to it. You also I understand like the colors, like you want to have somewhat of a flair to it too. You know who I'm looking at right now? Whose artwork I'm looking at? Because we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. Abel. What do you think about
Oh,
Abel drawing Gambit? And I mean, Natalia Marks is the colorist, I believe, on Rogue Sun. So I'd take
Abel.
that
I mean,
team.
I think Dan Moore would absolutely crush it.
Oh, yep.
Like the thing with Gambit too, like where you could get really, really cute with the coloring. is like really like keep it kind of dark, but just use the bright colors for when he lights up the cards.
Yep. Keep everything dark. Yep. Yep.
Right,
100%.
right.
100%. So it's so frustrating. It's like, and look, I'm sure they talked to Claremont and whatever and had a plan. And obviously Claremont is like,
Well,
a
that's
god.
the draw,
But
right? It's like
yeah,
Claremont, boom, and so, but you gotta make sure the other pieces around it too are just as strong.
I think you need younger writers on this. Like you need, like I'm not saying like we're spring chickens right now, but like our age, a little bit younger than us, people who like know X-Men '97, knew it as kids, in like or not X-Men, like the X-Men animated series, which is going to be coming back as X-Men '97. Like those people like they
Well,
got the best Gambit right there.
we're seeing a little bit of this right now, especially for Marvel, because Claremont, Claremont's a god, right? Like when it comes to X-Men, it's Claremont, but we're starting to see now, like they're bringing John Romita Jr. back, right?
Yep,
And
they got Hammer on Wolverine patch,
right,
which has been a move.
and he's also doing Spider-Man, right? Amazing
Yep,
Spider-Man, right? And that's
that's for
been
me to yeah.
so. I mean, yeah, I get it. Like bringing back some of these legends to do the titles, that they were, they're known for. Problem is they were known for them 30 years ago,
Hmm.
and you don't want to like,
Different readers, different times.
there's different readers, different times, characters evolve, right?
Yeah,
And it feels like they're still kind of writing them, as if we're going back in time again,
yeah.
and that I don't know if that works.
Oh yeah. No, I agree with you. Like I get like they cut it in like an era where it's like, hey, this is where Claremont did all his stuff still, so it can work. Yeah, but do we really need that? Do we really want that right now? Like I mean, Gambit's not been around for a while in his own title. The last stuff I think was Kelly Thompson, and I really enjoyed Kelly Thompson's run. And did I talk about Rogan Gambit on the show? I don't think I've done Rogan Gambit or Mr. and Mrs. X. That was them, and she did an
Yeah.
awesome job of that. Maybe that's another thing I'd feel comfortable about
Because
talking
you
about on the
ended up,
show.
yeah, I can't remember what
I
Gambit
did
book
Mar-
you ended up
I did
talking
the
about.
Marvel
Yeah,
Now
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but you know what? Maybe at some point I'll do that one on here because I had fun with that series. But anyways, let's move to DC. I know you have one DC title you wanted to dig in on a little bit. I'll roll through these fast. Of course, we got Robin 16, Batman 1, Dark Knight, which you were reading both of those.
And
I'm a
that's the
little
finale. That's written
yeah,
by Jock, and that's the
yep.
finale of that.
I am behind on that. How was it in the end? The
I
series?
I, I haven't read it yet. It's
Okay.
the one I didn't get to from DC.
Action Comics 1045, Swamp Thing 15, Harley Quinn 17, Task Force Z 10, Deathstroke Inc. 11, which I am reading, Sandman Universe, Nightmare Country issue 4, Joe's favorite,
Out, 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 out.
Batman Fortress issue 3, Aquaman issue 6, Superman Space Age issue 1, DC Mech 1, Young Justice Targets issue 1. And then, Joe,
We have the book that we were very, I don't want to say skeptical and I don't want to say nervous about, because this, with this particular writer, we've either been like way up here or we've just
yep.
kind of been like, but anyways, Detective Comics 1062, Rom V,
Mm-hmm.
Raphael Albuquerque on art.
Yeah.
And I remember when, we're getting towards the end of Marika Tamaki's run, and I was bummed out because I really loved what she was doing, and it was
Yeah.
more Bat Family stuff than it was Batman stuff, which I think was great. It was like perfect because we're always getting so inundated with Batman, and so that was a great sort of like refreshing, Gotham, Bat Family story. And then we get a change to the lettering of how Batman of Detective Comics is written on the cover, and we get this very gothic, operatic sort of vibe with this issue. And what Ram V and Raphael Albuquerque have done with where they're taking Detective Comics, and the story they told in this first issue was outstanding. If it wasn't for Something Is Killing the Children, this would hands down be my book of the week. It
Uh-huh.
was awesome.
Okay.
Albuquerque's art, as always, is stellar. It's dark. It's gothic. What Rom V is doing with Batman and Bruce Wayne. We're seeing him slightly older. Not like older, not like what Frank Miller gave us way back when, but Like even we get a little bit of Nightwing in this saying, well, you are getting old, you are slowing down, and so there's a lot of like that internal like Batman being like, something's wrong, I'm not fast enough. How could so and so, sneak up on me like that, right? So I like that. I like seeing a flawed Batman,
Right.
right? And where he's not always one step ahead, or he's not always, overpowered against everyone he's going up against. So,
Right.
they set the stage with this issue. If you haven't gone out, go out and pick up Detective Comics, 1062, not for one, but for two reasons, because Cy Spurrier writes the second story in this, which is a
Mm.
Jim Gordon story. And I got to tell you, fucking awesome.
Really? I've
Spurrier
not.
nails it. The art is it's a stark contrast going from Albuquerque. I forget who the writer is with Spurrier here. It's very sketchy, but it gives me vibes of what Tynan gave us from the Joker. That sort of detective. He's no longer Commissioner Gordon, right? He's in retirement now, and he's feeling helpless, and he's feeling like he's like he's feeling useless, and so the precipice to get him back, sort of back to basics, doing detective work, was really
Mm.
great. So Spurrier nails it. So like, I usually don't read the second story in Detective Comics. I always just read Tamaki's story, and then I would move on. This, hands down, read it cover to cover, it is fucking tremendous.
I still can't believe how much Tamaki had to write back. Like she did
I mean, it
so
was doing
much.
weekly for a while. I mean, it was
She,
weekly
she was pumping out stuff
or
like
bi-weekly, not weekly, but
crazy.
bi-weekly, right? It was
That's
a ton,
still
but
that's
like,
still nuts. I mean, and no wonder Mora eventually had to stop because like how do you
well, because
he's
he moved on to Batman, Superman, World's Finest,
but
right?
just in
And
general, like you
yeah,
can't keep up with that. I mean, and
no, God, no,
he does these
God, no.
crazy like so I'm trying to find out who the artist was for Spurrier on here in Detective Comics. If you give me a moment, I will have it for you. But yeah, it's crazy how much was done back when she was on it. The artist on this was Danny, Dani.
Okay,
That yeah, one name.
okay.
But anyways, that's awesome. That's great. That is awesome to hear. Happy for that the creative team, Albuquerque and Ron V. That's some good stuff. But you did mention that it's not your book of the week because your book of the week apparently is coming from Boom. Of course, we have House of Slaughter issue 7, The Killer, Affairs of the State issue 6. We
That was
only
the finale, by the way.
and how was it?
Great story. The ending just kind of, it was just, it ended.
So
You know,
not gonna do it on the show.
uh, I would love to, but it'd be hard because like I loved it, but at the same time, it's hard to talk about because it's just a very philosophical type of book in terms of like
That
just
sounds like a perfect book for the show.
nah, yeah, I'm not articulating it properly. It was
Well,
like,
that sounds about right. Now
yeah,
I'm seeing. Now I get it.
yeah,
We only
it
find
was
them when
great. Don't get me wrong, but like, I don't know, like I'm on the fence about it.
gotcha. We only find them when they're dead. Issue 12, all new Firefly issue 6, the Vampire Slayer issue 4, Magic the Hidden Planeswalker issue 4, and then Doc's book of the week was
It was Something Is Killing the Children, and not only was this issue the best issue that this series had to date, but it's might be the first book where I ever said that's a 10. That was a perfect 10. It was
wow.
it was Tynan's storytelling at his best. It was Deladera's art at his best, and there was major consequences, major things on the line. So like we've seen, like House of Slaughter, for example. The first arc revolved around the character Aaron, who we saw in the first two arcs of Something Is Killing the Children.
Hmm.
And spoiler alert, if you haven't read it by now, I mean it's over a year. It's happened, but that character dies, right? And
I don't care. No, it's
yeah.
fine. I didn't hear it.
Well, what are you fucking waiting for, Nicholas? Jesus Christ!
I
It was
got a
like,
lot of other stuff to read, and I'm just
well, you
gallivanting
got a
through our
lot of other
comics
stuff to
town.
read, but your catching up was nil. So, like, figure out your
Yeah, because
fucking deal.
I try and stay on top of most of the stuff. Because
Well, just
I was on top of all those things. I'd read all those things other than all of Hit Me. You hadn't. And
yeah,
you're not even caught up with Wolverine. We're talking get out of my face with this. Keep going about your Something's Killing the Children, you psycho.
read the fucking book. Well,
I've read some of it. Yes, I have. It's awesome.
so we see something very. earmuffs. But what we get in this particular issue, right, is we see another character suffer consequences for something that they've done. And we see Erica Slaughter, who is Mount Rushmore for me, one of the badass characters, female characters in comics. Really see her for the first time scared shitless. Right. And TLDR's art, the monster in this has a very mind flayer sort of vibe to it, but also a lot more grotesque. Like just start to finish, like this book, it had it all. It had suspense, it had horror, it had consequences. The art was fantastic. Like I read this and I just said, fuck, that's a 10. That's 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 perfect.
That's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
because we don't have many 10 out of 10 issues between the two of us, as much as we
Yeah.
have a lot of stuff that we enjoy. But when you say the Mount Rushmore stuff, I can't help but think it's like at some point we got to do some of these kinds of issues, like most badass, like or best like female lead character, best male lead character, like whether it's from an indie publisher or just indie comics in general.
Yeah.
But then like just do indie comics in general. Like Image has such a vast library, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool stuff. And obviously Erica Slaughter is definitely like of this decade, like she's definitely one of the greater additions over the past 10 years, however you want to put it. Awesome. And then we got we got a few more before we get to obviously Image, because there's a big one. They got a lot of stuff there. Dark Horse, Jenny Zero, Volume 2, Issue 3, IDW, My Little Pony, Issue 3, Joe's favorite title, Dynamite, Red Sonja 11, Source Point Press, we got Good Boy Volume 2, Issue 3. Of course, we got our guy Sheldon Buchert doing variant covers for that series. Donatello this week, Joe?
I believe so. Yep.
Nice. And then
Yep.
Titan, we got Bloodborne, The Lady of the Lanterns, Issue 1, Comixology, Chip Zdarsky's The All-Nighter, Issue 8, Aftershock, The Naughty List, Issue 4, and Kaiju Score, Issue 4. From Valiant, we got Book of Shadows, Issue 1. We don't get review copies from them, but we are excited to see what Cullen Bunn does with some more Shadow Man. And actually, Joe, before we get to Image 2, we got a question in the chat. What's grinding your gears today? Anything in particular, Joseph? This is from Slaps
you
America.
you not reading Something is Killing the Children.
Okay, well, moving on. We have Image, right? Or we have, of course, Skybound. I Hate This Place, Issue 3. Really enjoying that series. Image, we got Deadly Class 54. Image, Issue 4. Sins of the Black Flamingo, Issue 2. The Magic Order 3, Issue 1. That's a book I'm going to do on the show because I read the first series of that. Got to read the second one, so I guess dibs on that. Hellcop, Issue 9. The Hollows, Issue 1. We didn't give that one a look. One of us is going to have to. Then, of course, we are on top of The Scorched, Issue 8. A Right Search for Vengeance, Issue 10. Public Domain, Issue 2. And then we got the Masterverse. We got all three main titles from them this week. Still waiting on the Dead Lucky, but we got Radiant Red, Issue 5, which is really good ending, really awesome series. Cherish Chen did a great job with it. And we looks like we might be getting some more Radiant Red. So very excited. The ending was like really Satomi's
best issue of the series by far. It was fantastic.
Great growth for Satomi. Then we have which one do you want to talk about between Rogue Sun and Radiant Black?
I mean, flip a coin. I mean, let's go Rogue Sun first, and then we'll finish up with Radiant Black. Let's do Radiant Black first because because there's a great dynamic here.
Yeah, so with the Radiant Black, so first of all, I did try something a little different for Geeks Worldwide this week. I did review this. It was a shorter review, but one thing that we've talked about on here quite a bit, I know I remember you specifically saying it recently, how sometimes it's just so long between one issue and the next, and it's on average supposed to be a month, but sometimes it's longer than that. So what I kind of did this week for everybody was a refresher that if you read issue 15 when it came out, a little refreshers up on Geeks Worldwide before you read issue 16. And then there's also a spoiler-free review featured at the end of it. So might try and mix that in a little bit more if the people end up liking that one. I had a lot of fun with it too because you're going over the key points and then everything makes a lot more sense going into issue 16. There's not that like, oh, what was this? What was that? No flipping back through pages. But here we get Shift on the cover and then we get a fuck ton of Shift in this issue. And this dude does not mess around at all. And I hope that Kyle does not change that at all. And Costa, they've been doing an awesome job developing this character. I think they've had some of him in Image. He's got like his own kind of series there too. Obviously, you see him in Radiant Red, but the ending of this show, obviously, we can't say what happened, but woof.
Well,
Like,
all I gotta say,
wow.
like what the Massiverse does really well, right, is like not only do we have badass heroes, and we have conflicted heroes, but we also have like really good villains.
Hmm.
The villains in all of these series so far have been absolutely fantastic. And again, like I said, was something is killing the children. There's stakes, there's consequences,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And they don't pull any punches. And so what we see, especially in Radiant Black too, is like we've been talking about, Nathan and
Marshall.
Marshall, thank you. And their relationship and their dynamic and just the sort of the ebb and flow, the back and forth. You've got the radiant sort of hanging over both of them. And what we get this issue is like I didn't see it coming,
No.
but I did, in the sense like you knew something was gonna happen
Soon.
and
Yeah.
you just didn't know how. And the how just it was just again, I think it sort of made both our jaws drop. And
Yeah.
so like it's just they're killing it. They're killing it. And then oh sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was. They are killing it. Like it's
Yeah.
like not the children, thankfully, but man, like the last image that you get left on here, like it's really cool, but also at the same time, you're like, wait, I gotta wait a month. Like
Yeah.
I gotta wait a month to find out. Like this is one of those things where it's like I understand why people want to just get it when it comes out in trade form. Like
Right.
it's different with comics versus weekly TV shows, just because it's a much longer wait and you're getting so much less, in issue to issue versus like an hour long or a half hour long show. But man, was this issue
Yeah.
outstanding, and that ending was just like it's gonna sit with people. Like it's gonna
Yeah.
because there's some gray area in there, and it's awesome. Like one of the best issues of Radiant Black we've gotten so far.
Yeah, and then we get Rogue Sun, right? Which in its
Oh,
own right is fucking crackers. And you know, this issue, like there's a lot of action, but it's a lot of conflict, familial conflict, that's been building up to this point. And last issue, last two issues have been like, what the fuck? And then we see it all come to a head this issue. So like you get Radiant Black, you get Rogue Sun, you get Radiant Red. I mean, those are three stellar massive verse books. One came to its conclusion, the other two are still going, but like, and we still have more to come. So like I wasn't like joking around when I said like it's the biggest thing in comics right now because
mm,
of like just all the spindles coming off this one main title.
dude,
And
when
I
you
never
guys
would
get
have predicted this when I first read issue one of Radiant Black, but man, here we are now, and they're just like they're not missing a step. They're just
no.
boom, 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 boom,
Wait till
boom,
you
boom,
guys
boom.
get your hands on the Dead Lucky 2. I mean, that
Yeah,
first issue was that character is really cool. Really,
yep.
like I'm
And the
very
art's
interested.
fantastic. I mean,
Yeah,
everything that these guys touch right now, these guys, guys, gals, the whole
everybody
team,
in Massiverse.
right,
Yeah.
they're just firing on all cylinders.
And if you listen to the Ryan Parrott interview that we did a while back, he talked about he talked about how he doesn't really have himself in any of the Rogue Sun characters, but what he does do is like kind of reflect on some of the stuff from his upbringing, and that absolutely comes out in this sixth
Yeah,
issue. And it's like, man, this is tense, and I don't know what Dylan's gonna do
yeah.
in this situation. Obviously, for those who read Rogue Sun 5, like you're left on this huge cliffhanger and reveal, and it's like, what the fuck? And then
And I don't trust what's her name either. Like,
I don't trust anybody. Are you
yeah,
kidding me? I don't trust anybody in this story. This is nuts, dude. Are you kidding me?
yeah,
But I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, this is man, like Rogue Sun has been like so this is the end of the first arc, and that I think the collected edition is coming out in August.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate if you see this in
Don't.
your local comic shop. Pick it up right away if you
Right.
haven't read it already. It's awesome stuff. But that is of course we had the news, so that kind of made our what's new a little bit longer than usual. But Doc,
And
it
we
is
flew and
time.
we flew through what's new, if we're
Yeah,
being honest, right?
that's true. Yeah, if we look at the
Yep.
clock. But anyways, it is time for us to get to the books that we had planned for this. We are doing a pair of Image books. Yours is extremely timely, excuse me.
Timey, old
Timey.
timey.
Timey. Timey the fourth. What book are you talking about today?
So this is, we try and do this whenever we can, as best as possible, with this stuff. So on Friday on Amazon, Paper Girls drops the live action show, and I mean I read this book. I read this book after listening to Dork Rich talk about it on Dork Podcast, and I said, oh, it sounds really good, and it's written by Brian K. Vaughan, so it's a no fucking brainer.
Right.
So with the show dropping Friday, I thought this was a great week to talk Paper Girls. So as I just mentioned, written by Brian K. Vaughan, artist is Cliff Chiang, colors by Matt Wilson, and letters by Jared K. Fletcher. And the synopsis, nice and tight, this one actually. In
Wow.
the early hours after Halloween of 1988, four 12-year-old newspaper delivery girls uncover the most important story of all time. Stand By Me meets War of the Worlds in this mysterious young adventure. So I think that's a very apt comparison, right? War of the Worlds, Stand By Me, because War of the Worlds, if you're familiar with H.G. Wells' story, it's sci-fi. It's about these sort of these mechanical aliens, robots, sort of taking over Earth. And at the time, like it was all done serialized on the radio, and it caused quite the stir. Actually created a fucking panic, with it. But like it's very sci-fi. The Paper Girls is very, very heavy on the sci-fi, very heavy on the time travel. It is fantastic. Now, when this synopsis was written, because I believe this was written back in 2016 or so, obviously Stranger Things wasn't out yet, or was just, so like a lot of times now when you hear people talk about Paper Girls, they're going to say, oh, it's Stranger Things, but with girls. And I think the comparison really is that it's a group of kids in the 80s, and whereas Stranger Things it's boys and Paper Girls it's girls. But like that's really sort of where the comparison sort of starts and ends, right?
Mm,
Because like I would compare this a little bit more to Stand By Me, because this is more of a coming of age story than Stranger Things is. I mean, obviously you get those vibes, but like Stranger Things is more or less telling you a horror story. And while this is very sci-fi driven, you've got these four girls who are, there's a lot of self-discovery. They each have their own sort of things they need to overcome, personally. And so like what we've seen from Brian K. Vaughan, especially with Saga, right? He's a great storyteller,
oh yeah.
and he's not afraid to get weird. He's not afraid to push the limits. And he never really holds back on anything. But he's also really good with his character writing. A lot of times I talk about my Mount Rushmore and of writers, and it's Chip, it's
Tynan.
Lemire, it's Tynan, right? And he- it's weird that we kind of forget about Brian K. Vaughan, because he's not as prolific as these other writers are. When I say that, I don't mean like his status, but I mean like the volume of work that he does,
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just
right?
it's a matter of the volume.
So like it's like easy to forget, because like really he's just doing Saga, and he's
Yeah.
done Paper Girls, which was
Why
30
the Last
issues,
Man?
right? Why the Last Man? But those are like like he just it's like he focuses on one title at a time, and he fucking knocks it out of the park, right? So like it's easy to kind of overlook him, which is dumb, because we shouldn't, because he's there, he's up there, he's and so, like, one of his great strengths, again, is not just getting weird and telling great stories, but his character work. We see it like in Saga with Alana. You see it with Marco. You see it with with Prince Robot. And as much as we hate the Will, right? Like you just see it, like he writes these characters, and whatever their strengths and their weaknesses are, he just highlights them perfectly. And so you've got these four, girls who aren't quite teenagers yet, being thrust into a situation of just like what the fuck. And the story that we're gonna get, a story that you get if you read the comics, but what I'm hoping that it was also reflected through the TV show is like these girls really like not just banding together, but then also overcoming their own things in the midst of like this fucked up situation, that's going on around them. And so what I'll say about the books is, right, it's 30 issues. So like we're looking at Saga now. Saga is at issue 60, right? So this is only half the scope of Saga. And Saga is this massive thing. Like this, like Paper Girls is no quick undertaking. Like it reads quick because like once you start, you don't want to stop. You want to keep going. I will say though, unlike with Saga, there are some parts to Paper Girls that gets a little convoluted and can get a little confusing because you're dealing with time travel and you're dealing
Ah,
with right, and so that can always just get a little messy,
of
logistics
course.
wise, and jumping from sort of place to place to place to place. And just like with any group, the fellowship, is together. They might not always be on the same page to start, then they get separated and then they come back, right? Like, so it's this journey. And it's just what I love about Paper Girls is that you've got four badass girls that just when you watch Stranger Things, like the only real badass in Stranger Things is Eddie, right? And even he's not
Mhm.
a badass because he admits he's like, he portrays one, but in like he's like, his flaw is like, I don't know if I'm, you know, like I'm a coward, really. And then you get that awesome scene, Eddie the Brave and all that. But like these girls, they fucking swear they aren't afraid of anything. They'll scrap it up,
Mm.
and it's just like it's fun to read. Like you do get that 80s vibe, like pretty much just solely in that first issue. And then as there's sort of time jumping around, you'll get some 90s references, you get some early 2000s references, right? Like and so like it's a little bit more expansive than that. Like season one of Stranger Things we love because it gave us that 80s ambulant entertainment vibe, from Goonies and ET and all those like movies that were made in the 80s, and all the
Mm.
references and stuff. Like you get that from this, but it's more than just that, right? And so I think that's where Brian K. Vaughan really thrives. And so like the beginning of book one is really fucked up because you're in this classic, Brian K. Vaughan fucked up, twisted, where the hell is this going dream sequence, and then it gets pulled back into reality. And and just like any good writer, they bring the threads together and it all comes back. But it's early morning, day after Halloween. Your main character, is Erin, and she's out there. She's starting her paper out, and some so she has teenagers, some teenage boys. One of them's dressed as Freddy Krueger. He's giving her a hard time, and this is where the other girls we get introduced to them. No, they don't know who Erin is, but they sort of like are protecting her mostly because the boys are just being assholes. And then like they quickly band together, and it just starts off simply like we got to just get our route done for the day. So Erin and this girl Mac, they go their way. Tiffany and this girl AJ go their way. And this is like great, like character building moment, like where the first issue does. That's what it's supposed to do, is just to pull you in, introduce you to the characters, and then by the end of the issue, what happens is, because I want to describe, because it's just like the premise is so great, is that it's a lot focused on Aaron and Mackenzie. Those are really your two mainish characters. Aaron is the main character, so to speak, and Mackenzie's really the leader of the group. And she's the one that's the most bad. She's the one that smokes. She's the one that the cops all know, because her and her
Mm.
family are notorious for getting into trouble. And so you're getting a lot of character development on those too. But then they've got these walkie talkies, right? And you get, help, help. We've been attacked. And you find out that in one of the panels you see these kind of weird, creepy looking ninja dudes, and you figure, oh, it's Halloween. It's just people in character, and they've stolen the other girl's walkie talkie. And one of the girls is pissed because she spent $50 on Radio Shack, and like that was a lot of money, back then. So they decide that let's go get our fucking walkie talkies back, right? So they go to follow these guys. It takes them to this abandoned house. They go down into the basement where they uncover this thing that looks sort of like a lunar capsules, but like more like futuristic. And then all of a sudden, boom, zap, the thing starts fucking buzzing, and um they're in the future. They don't realize they're in the future because everything sort of looks the same, but then they look up at the sky and you get like someone goes, the sky doesn't look like that. What's going on? Right. And then one of the girls finds something on the ground. And this is what I thought was really awesome. They go, "What the hell is that?" And it looks like an old school like iPod, like the little square ones that you could clip like onto your like
Oh, iPod Shuffle.
yeah, the shuffle, right? And it had the Apple logo on it. And like it was just like really cool seeing it because you go from the 80s. And so you kind of get a sense of where they are in time now. So then like boom. And then from here it just really fucking takes off. And like I said, like it's Brian K. Vaughan. So it gets fucked up. It gets weird. It gets
Yeah.
awesome. But like the time travel, especially as you start to get more into like the teens and like the third arc can get a little like, okay, you got to kind of remember like where you are, what happened. You might have to flip back a little bit, but the way it starts and the way it finishes is just so awesome. This is such a great book. I highly recommend everyone read it. And my biggest hope is that with the show, and I think Amazon does a really good. I think Amazon might do one of the better jobs with adapting comics into shows.
Two for
Is that they
two.
yeah, is that they don't go sweet tooth on it, right? And they don't change the vibe and the feel and the of what Netflix did, with
Hmm.
Sweet Tooth. And because like we know Amazon's willing to go there. We've seen it with Invincible. We've definitely seen it with The Boys. And so for I'm more than convinced like this show is just gonna kick ass and it'll be a great like now that Stranger Things is over, we can dig into this and really enjoy this and enjoy these characters because all the girls, you've got like I said, Erin, who's the main girl, you've got Mackenzie, who's the real badass and the leader, but then you've got Tiffany, who's more or less sort of like the Donatello of the group,
Ah,
and then you've got AJ who is like the muscle, right? And but they're all conflicted in some way. They all have shit they have to overcome, and just the storytelling in and of itself is great. The art is fantastic. The use of color is fantastic, and I can't wait to watch the first episode on Friday.
I'm very excited for it. And having it on Prime too, you're right. I'd forgotten where it was going to be. I couldn't agree with you more. Like Prime is like I'm fine with seeing something go to Netflix because we have seen some violent stuff. I mean, like you have The Witcher, and obviously that's a book first, then a video game, then a comic. But like we do see some violent things out there. But and Sweet Tooth is not at all like the comic, like in terms of like the
It just
gritty
isn't right.
nastiness,
It just
right?
isn't.
But we know with Prime, like they did it with Invincible. They're not going to stop with Invincible, and they've been wildly successful with The Boys. So I just feel like that's the place right now. Like if you're saying one place is going to take on a show, a comic book
That's the
as a
place.
show, that's the place I want it to go to first. That's my number
Yeah.
one for sure. The book that I'm talking about today, though, I know is not coming out now, but was just brought up in the Eisner conversation again. Has won Eisner's in the past. That's Bitter Root from Image Comics, another Image book. This one actually is going to turn into a movie. I'll get to that a little bit later on. The writer for this series, we actually got two. We got co-writers in this, Chuck Brown and David F. Walker. They're co-creators along with Sanford Green, who was the artist on this series, and also does some colors too. But I think Rico Renzi does more colors throughout the course of the series. Either way, they're both on it. And then Clayton Cowles is also the letterer for this. This is just 15 issues, nice and tight. Started in 2018, is done now, which is makes sense that it's becoming a movie. Although, like where we've seen like not that I want it to be a Sweet Tooth kind of change in the sense of like the tonal change, but when you look at what this family kind of brings to the table, this cast of characters, like, oh, if you wanted to, you could use the major plot that's in Bitterroot, but you could also kind of have more fun in this time period if you wanted to with these characters. But again, we all, both of us, of course, love being faithful and loyal to the comics. So got no problem with that, especially with indie stuff. Don't fuck with what's already awesome. So I am behind having this be a movie. As for the synopsis on the first issue, in the 1920s, the Harlem Renaissance is in full swing, and only the Singari family can save New York and the world from the supernatural forces threatening to destroy humanity. But the once great family of monster hunters has been torn apart by tragedies and conflicting moral codes. The Singari family must heal the wounds of the past and move beyond their differences, or sit back and watch a force of unimaginable evil ravage the human race. And I'll tell you what, dude. So when I first saw the cover for this, and Sanford Green does all like the main covers, and they kind of connect through the issue to issue. I saw this. I'm like, this is going to be really cool. Like, this just looks like it's awesome. Like, I like everybody's style. I like their kind of like the way they're carrying themselves in this cover. And man, I was not disappointed. These characters are awesome. So we got Ma Ita, who's the grandmother. She's essentially the matriarch of the family, and she's overseeing her grandkids, who are all cousins of one another. We don't have any siblings when you're looking in the first arc. Now we got Blink, we got Berg, we got Cullen. Those are the ones that we see right at the jump. They're all together. Blink is the lone female cousin, and she is like, it's like typical girl situation where it's like, you can't go and do the stuff that men do. You're not allowed to do it because of, grandmother might be a little bit more fearful, but in the end, it's just like, I'm being told I can't do something because I'm a woman. So she wants to go out and kick ass, and man, she can fucking kick ass. She's awesome. I love Blink, love her look. And if you just look at the cover of the tray too, this family has a ton of flair. They're awesome. Berg is the big bruiser. And what's so funny about him is like, he's knowledgeable about the monster fighting and everything. Cool. But like, he's just immensely articulate in a way like you never see it with like the big bad guys, like, or the big fighters or anything like that. It's like, he's a big dude, like, okay, you want me to smash this, and that's pretty much it. And I know, like, with Hulk, we get like Professor Hulk, who's smart, but the difference is like Hulk's got all these like scientific stuff that he understands, and he knows like scientific terms that are applicable to the situation. But when you look at this guy, it's like he uses indubitably, and it's just like natural. Like he's a wordsmith. I think above all else is the best way to play it. We just don't see that with big bruisers a whole hell of a lot. So I love him. Then we got Cullen, and he's the one guy who's like he's the youngest of the bunch. He doesn't really have a feel for things. He goes through a crazy transformation in the first arc, and you're left kind of with like, wait, what's going on with this character? But I don't want to get too far deep into any of that kind of stuff. We don't need to give you a understanding of Bitterroot. The most badass motherfucker though of the Sangari family, as much as Maita is cool and Blink is awesome, is Ford Sangari, who is separated from his family at the start of the first arc. Then he kind of comes in and joins them. But when we meet him, it's the end of the first issue, and it's like, oh, okay. So this is the motherfucker who's going to get shit done. This is the guy who people are going to attach themselves to pretty big early on, and he does not give a shit about anybody. He's a loner at the start, and he still kind of has that loner feel to him, when he meets back up with his family. But man, that dude is. He's a cool motherfucker, and he's probably my favorite character. They also get Uncle Enoch as well, who's scientist, outcast of the family, kind of push boundaries with certain things and looking stuff up and in research that it was just like, we're monster hunters, but there's just certain things we don't do. We're not looking into. We don't want to get into like dark magic or alchemy, I believe is how it's put in his case. So kind of pushing boundaries there, and why he's kind of outcast from the family. But there's stuff that goes down in New York that's like, we need his help. Like we need to bring him back into the fray. We need his help because like there are members of the family who we just need to have back in the mix. And you find out with this family, as I mentioned in the synopsis, they were this once proud, like awesome monster hunting family. And it's like, nah, like you ain't got that anymore. This is it. This is it. You may or may not see other Sangari people show up later on, but in the course of the story, but it's like, this is pretty much what you're working with. And this whole time they're used to fighting these things called Janus, which is just basically a term for like a monster. But I think it's put best by Uncle Enoch. And they are what happens to people when their souls are tainted by hate. And one of the best examples is like we see a KKK clan meeting, and this is where, and this is the first issue, so it's not really spoiling a whole lot. Ford, you see him on the first cover. This is not spoiling much. It's like the last few pages. He comes in and he takes out like this whole clan meeting except for one guy, and this one guy is like a normal dude. The rest of them are these goblin-looking motherfuckers that are basically those are Janus. But as we go throughout the course of the story, we find out like, okay, Janus we can handle, but there's some other shit out there that we have never heard of as a family. And it's like what it creates a whole other big mess, whole another big challenge to deal with. So it's just in the pacing on this book, it's like it's not breakneck pace, Joe, but it's fast paced. Like we got a ton
Love
of
it.
action,
Love it.
introducing the characters, bouncing around a lot. Like when you talk about Brian K. Vaughan, one thing like he's the first person that made me think about pacing because of Saga. He does it with Why the Last Man too. And when I look at Paper Girls, I'm curious. Like, do you feel the pacing similar to Saga and like how he bounces around from one group to another, or is that not the same?
Um, yes and no. I would say like yes, in one aspect, but I would also say to your pacing, there are a few periods where in Paper Girls it slows a bit.
Gotcha.
Whereas with Saga, I feel like for the most part, it's like boom, like the bouncing, like going from group to group to group, like
That's what I mean. That's
it
more.
doesn't it doesn't slow down, right? And so in this, it he does it effectively, but there are I think just a couple of times where it slows a bit, and again, it's not detrimental.
No,
It's
no,
not
no,
enough
but
to make, but it does like that's like the biggest difference I think. Like from Paper Girls to Saga, storytelling wise, is like he's firing on all cylinders with Saga, but with Paper Girls, there are just a few moments where it kind of gets. It's when it's at its most convoluted is when that happens.
right. And like for me, what my point with it was more so like when you have like a group of characters that are at the center of everything, and you bounce around from like two at a time, and then you mix it up a
Yeah,
little bit, and then you have them all in one room at once. Like it has makes those moments have carry a little bit more weight. It
right.
makes things move a little bit
Hmm.
faster in the story. So and you get that, and I mean Sanford Green's art style too. Like I was like it has like a grit to it too, but it also has like a cartoony vibe to it as well. So I absolutely love it for like what the monsters are that you're dealing with, but then also kind of it allows him to go and draw Ford and then go and draw Cullen, and it's like they're in the same family, they're in the same friggin' universe and all this shit, but at the same time, like they look so different in their style, but it also still tracks. So it's I have like that's not something I feel like we can always see all the time. I'm not saying we don't see like different designs for characters, but um there's like a thread. Like you can see similarities and everything like that. With this, like this is like the biggest the most noticeable difference I would say is like when you're looking at those characters and even to an extent too with Berg. And I think that's like takes a special kind of talent that we don't see very often. So really like the art style. Obviously that plays into everything as well. And the colors are awesome too. Kind of but more dark than anything else, but you do get a little bit of like not neonish colors, but you mix in a little bit of brightness when you're bringing in some of these weird looking monsters. As I mentioned, it's option for a movie picked up by Legendary Pictures. The three main creators on this, two writers, Brown and Walker, and then of course Green, the artists. They're going to be executive producers on this, and then Regina King is going to be the director. And for those who don't know Regina King by name, you've seen her in a ton of stuff. Most notably, recently was HBO's Watchmen. She was the lead in that one, so it's in good hands.
Yeah,
Property's in good hands.
yeah. It
So
sounds fantastic. Sounds like something I definitely want to read.
yeah,
The art does look fantastic because the artist is the cover artist as well. So I was when I was putting those pictures on Instagram earlier, absolutely loved it. So this is a title I've always seen, and it just I never grabbed it for whatever reason. So I'm glad you did, and I can't wait to read it.
and I've been sitting on this one a while, and I do this sometimes. Like, oh, I want to read this one, but I'm going to wait just for the right time. And with this being an option for a movie, it's like, oh, maybe I'll wait a little bit longer. But it's like now it's getting brought up again because the Eisner conversation. It's like I've wanted to talk about this for a while. So, and I got to save face. Wait, did I say that out loud? So, anyways, again, we ran a little long on a mainline episode, so we're not going to do another failed superheroes club. We do have one ready for you guys next time allows. But we're not going to be doing the failed superheroes club next week because we do have our August solicit, if I'm not mistaken, next week, right,
Yep.
Joe?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, stay sexy.
You know it.